course everybody says how. And what are we going to do? I think that a lot of people actually were not elected Democrats.
People who are part of the left, they're journalists, they're activists,
Right.
they're the academic left, like on NPR, right? Like in defense of looting, or get rid of the police, or free grocery stores, which is now the official policy of the probable next mayor of New York City.
Well, that's the thing.
Yeah.
So you see that
It's seeping in now. It's seeping in now.
Oh, it's been seeping for a while.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of
Well,
seeping.
it's a good question, a good litmus test. People come into my office all the time, and they're advocating for an issue or a cause, and I always ask myself, what is the accountability or feedback loop of these people?
Right.
Like, who elected
Right.
you?
Exactly.
Right? And that's why, labor leaders, they're elected.
Yes.
Faith leaders, they're elected. They have constituencies. They're accountable to people. But there is an ecosystem of organizations and advocacy groups that are disattached from a lot of that feedback loop.
Yeah.
And we have to ask ourselves, where are we getting our information?
The guy he just brought up, that's who you're all going to have to answer for. So I got to get your answer. This is Mondami. If you've been not following the news, he won the Democratic primary in New York, so he is certainly likely to be the next mayor. We don't know. I mean, there's a lot of opposition because we've never had someone this radical. Some of the things he says, he quotes Marxist, each according to their need. I mean, that's straight up communism. Whether you call it the abolition of private property, you call it housing guarantees, it's preferable to what is going on right now. I mean, just the phrase abolition of private property, not something we usually hear in America. Prisons were obsolete. What purpose do they serve? I could think of a couple. The NYPD is racist, anti-queer, and a major threat to public safety. I think most people think cops are protecting their public safety, even though there's issues and problems with the police department. Do you like capitalism? No. We've never had a guy quite like this.
I thought you were going to say that beards and politics are back, but, you know.
But let me ask the question. Yeah. You're going to have to answer everything like this. They're going to ask every single Democratic politician. It's not just men done. That's never new.
I mean, there's always a villain. There's always people. They always try to create a villain. Is my point. They always try to create some boogeyman or boogeywoman. If it wasn't this one, it was going to be somebody else.
I'm not creating anything.
I'm not defending the policies. There are plenty of things that I disagree with there, and that I don't come down on. But the point being, we see this every cycle. I've now been doing this long enough to know that every single cycle there's some contrived villain or boogeyman, and if it wasn't this one,
he's not contrived. He's going to be the mayor of New York.
Everything that the crazy far right alleged about Barack Obama wasn't born in America. Right. Islamist, socialist, right. Anti-Semite, hates America. It's all true about this guy. Right. Okay, it is all true about this guy. You didn't even mention. Yeah. You didn't even mention the thing that I find the most appalling, which is that he defends the expression globalize the Intifada.
Yes, correct.
Which explicitly means, and I don't want to hear anyone deny this, it means kill Jews wherever and whenever you can find them. That's what that expression means. And the fact that this man is on the verge of becoming the mayor of the second largest Jewish city in the world is very frightening. And I'm actually really disappointed that more Democrats have either, are not coming out and condemning him and saying we're not going to endorse this guy, because he is beyond the pale. And I feel like I was 10 years ago when I was writing all these critical things about Republicans who were not saying anything about Trump and letting Trump go on, and they weren't standing up to him. And I feel with this guy, we're seeing the same sort of cowardice and spinelessness amongst the Democrats.
I'm never going to defend that comment, right? But he did actually come out this week and say that he shouldn't have used that language. He's never going to use that language again, and that he's going to encourage people not to use that language and push back against it. So that is actually the right move. So I think we should point that out.
Okay. Well, this is the issue that is going to divide the Democratic Party. Jews, Israel, Gaza. Obviously, the last month that we've been off, that's taken an even worse turn in Gaza. There is starvation there now. Even Trump says it. The question isn't whether it is going on. It is going on. It is always, whose fault is it? Now, let's not kid ourselves. Hamas does like it when their own people die. That is their strategy. I'm not saying Israel is blameless or Israel has done the right things here, but let's not forget that part of it. They do like it when their people die. Their strategy is to win the propaganda war, and of course martyrdom is a big part of the religion. That's a good thing to die. So we're dealing with that. That was always the problem with dealing with an enemy that has suicide bombers. How do you stop people who like dying in a war? Yeah. So where are you on that?
Yeah, I spent the early part of my life fighting folks like Hamas, right? People doing suicide bombing,
yes,
human shields, taking advantage of the civilian population, and there are just evil people in the world that need to be brought to justice and need to be killed. Right? And Hamas is in that category. There's no doubt about it. But what I also learned during that time is all the folks around them, the civilians that get caught up in that, they are victims of it too. Right? 99+% of the Palestinians who are trying to live their life, parents, raise children, that just want peace too, are also victims of Hamas. Right? And we can't, in the process of going after Hamas, allow those folks to be written off as collateral damage. Or just necessary victims, because what I learned is that it's not necessary. It is not an inevitable consequence of conflicts and wars that we just have to accept this level of civilian casualties and suffering. There is a different way of doing it, and that's why I have focused on saying, yes, go after Hamas, Make sure that Israel can be safe and prosperous and secure, but also the Palestinians also deserve safety, prosperity, security, and dignity as well.
They have been offered that for 75 years. They have been offered that for 75 years if they would stop insisting Israel must not exist.
Yeah, and I would also just question the figure of 99.5%.
I would
oppose Hamas. We actually think it's a lot less than
way
that.
less.
Yeah, and that doesn't make them, that does not make, if you're a civilian, it doesn't matter who you support. If you're a civilian, you're a civilian, and no civilian should ever be targeted in warfare by a democratic country. But we have to really appreciate the unprecedented nature of this conflict that Israel is in right now. This is the first time that a country was invaded by a sadistic, depraved enemy that came in, murdered 1,200 people, took 250 hostages. We haven't heard about them, by the way. There's some of them left right now. And then these evil, evil men, they built a 500-mile tunnel structure underground with materials that was given to them by the international community to actually build homes and schools and something productive. They use that as a bomb shelter for themselves. And they don't let any civilians come down when Israeli bombs rain down on them. So how can Israel, win this war? I think we all agree Hamas has to go. Because if Hamas is left in power at the end of this conflict, I can tell you, whether it's 2 years, 3 years, 4, 5 years, 10 years, they will start another pointless war, and the Palestinian people will be the chief victims of it.
And let me just interject one thing before we run out of time, because this is important. We are a catch-up on the news show, and what you just said, we all agree that Hamas has to go. Until yesterday, we did not all agree. As of yesterday, the Arab League... The Arab League, let's not bury the lead here. The Arab League, 22 Arab countries got together and said, Hamas, you're over. That's huge. That the Arabs themselves are saying, this is a bad organization and these people have to go. You need to disarm and give up. And of course, this all could have ended if they just had surrendered, which obviously they're beaten, but they don't want to do that.
There's no, and that's not right either, but my larger point is this, and what you talked about is right, the tactical realities and the challenges of this, brutal stuff. Yeah. I mean, we're really, really tough challenge going after that, no doubt about it. My larger point is this, is thousands of women and children and families starving to death is not inevitable. It's not an inevitable consequence of that. That does not need to be a part of this, right? There's a way to prevent it and still accomplish the larger goal, and that's what I'm fighting to do.
What about the younger people in your party, though? How are you going to get them to understand, no matter how many times people like Jamie and I say to them, the world is a complicated place, and it's not just about oppressor and oppressed. They have a thought in their head that white people did some very bad things, and white people did some very bad things. And they're all but so did everybody else in the world. But they don't know that. They just see the world through this one prism. And until they do, I don't think you're going to get them off this issue. And I don't think the Democratic Party is going to be able to go forward until they make a decision. Whose side are you on here? Are you on the side of Western civilization and Western values, or are you on the side of the terrorists? Are you with those kids? Because, Mandami, he's the perfect candidate for them. Yep. That's what they think is cool. I mean, that's what the campus protests were. So I'd just be curious what you say in the last minute that we have. How does the Democratic Party address your younger people? Because there's the energy of the party.
The challenge of politics and the challenge of being a political leader right now is the fact that there isn't a lot of room for debate. There isn't a lot of room for people to sit down and say, we need to hold multiple truths in our minds at the same time.
Well, that's a tough one.
That is tough, right? Because we're in the soundbite world. Social media doesn't allow it. Tristan talked about this. It is really tough, and that is the leadership challenge of the moment, right? That is what we all have to do, is say there are multiple things that need to happen here. We need to protect civilians. We need to protect children. All people need to have dignity and human rights in a path to self-governance, and that we don't have to choose who's allowed to have it and who's not allowed to have it. And that is our task. And I'm going to continue to fight hard to try to get it done.
Okay. Great to have you. Great to have you, Jamie. Thank you, guys. Time for new rules. Okay. All right, new rule. Now that Mattel is going to make a Barbie who has diabetes, maybe it's time we rethought whether kids today could accept Ken having a dick.